Today we're going to talk about key signatures. What key signature has 0 sharps and 0 flats? The key of C. If you didn't remember this, there's a simple trick with using your hand. You make your hand in the shape of 0, 0 sharps, 0 flats, and then slightly open it up, and you get the letter C. 0 sharps, 0 flats, key of C. But how does this really work? So in order to find this out, we need to go to the piano keyboard. So on this smartboard, I have a piano keyboard. And as you can see, it consists of white keys and black keys. Now, all the white keys are all the natural notes. So we start with C here, and we can just name the natural notes. But what about the sharps? We're going to talk about sharps today. So in order to get a sharp, you go up a half step from the natural note. So if we start with C, we go up a half step, that becomes C sharp. If we go to D and we go up a half a step, it becomes D sharp. Here's E, we're not going to talk about E sharp just yet. Here's F, up a half step, F sharp, G, up a half step, G sharp, and A, up a half step, A sharp. So all of these black keys can be labeled as sharps. When we get to flats, they also have a flat name, but we'll get to that in another video. So how does this help us know what sharps are in a key signature? So to do that, we're going to go to a keyboard that we can actually write in. And all of our key signatures come off of the pattern that we find in the key of C. So I'm going to write the notes for the key of C on the keyboard. So this 2 black keys here, just to the left is C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So it's all white keys, so there's no sharps and no flats. I'm going to number the degrees of our scale. C will be 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and C is 8. All major scales have 8 scale degrees. And the pattern is a pattern of whole steps and half steps. So we're going to look and see where the whole steps and half steps fall. Between C to D is a whole step, and it's a whole step because there's another note in between. So C to D is a whole step, D to E. It's also a whole step because there's a note in between. Now let's look at E and F. Do you see E and F? There is no key in between. So between E and F, that's where a half step falls, okay? All right, between F and G, and I'm going to mark that half step with a little caret here. Between F and G is a whole step, G to A is a whole step. Again, you see the keys in between, and A to B is also a whole step. But again, we have B to C, and there's no note in between there, so B to C is a half step. This is our pattern for a major scale. 2 separate parts. First is 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, and 4, a half step between 3 and 4, and then the second 4 is 5, 6, 7, 8, and the half step between 7 and 8, okay? And what's really interesting, it is for each part, it's whole step, half step. So it's a really nice balanced pattern. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write that pattern up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm going to put our half steps in between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. Okay. Now, key of C is really easy. Now, what scale has 1 sharp? Well, we have this thing called the circle of fifths, and the reason we call it circle of fifths is because you count 5 notes to find the next scale in order. So if C has 0 sharps and flats, the next scale is going to have 1. So we're going to find out what that scale is by counting to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the next scale in the order of scales is going to be G. So we know that G is going to have 1 sharp. What sharp is that going to be? I'm going to put G back here. Okay, so now we look. We have G, A, B, C. And that's our first half step. 1, 2. We need to change this. 3, 4. And this is correct. You see, 1 to 2, it's a whole step because of the note in between. 2 to 3 is a whole step because of the note in between. And 3 to 4 is a half step because there's no note in between. All right, we're going to continue. I'm just going to number these. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. And we need to have a half step between 3 and 4 and what? 7 and 8. Okay, so 7 and 8. All right, so now let's name our notes. Okay, G, A, B, C. The next one is going to be D, and that's a whole step, so that works. We want a whole step between 5 and 6, so D to E, and that works. And now from 6 to 7, we want a whole step here. But right now, we have a half step if we use this note. We don't want to use this note. We're going to make this from here to the 7 a whole step. So now we're going to go up to this note right here, and I'm just going to highlight it. And from here to here is a whole step. So this is a step higher than the E, or a half step higher than this note, and so this is going to be F sharp. Okay, there's F sharp, and then F sharp, and this is going to be G now. Okay, so now we have our G major scale, 1 sharp, and what's the name of that sharp? The name of that sharp is F sharp.